Can you afford a new Porsche 911 base model Carrera? Well, first, let's identify the starting MSRP of a 2025 911. It's going to be about $122,000, but obviously most Porsche dealerships are not going to be carrying a pure base model. Every vehicle, it's going to have some form of options on it. So we have to use other websites to find a true base model. However, when using a website like Car Gurus, there's only like 10 new 911s for sale in the entire country. At least that's what that website is showing. When you go to Auto Trader, they're showing no results. A brand like Porsche, they don't necessarily want to advertise publicly like how many 911s they have for sale. Similar to Ferrari, they don't want you to get a grasp on the supply. However, funny enough, you can just go to Porsche's own consumer website and you can see how many 911s are for sale. And also there's another car buying site that you can use. It's called visor.vin. This site is not perfect. It definitely has a lot of glitches, but when you come here, you can see that there's about 136 new 911s for sale throughout the US. That's fine, but I recommend going to Porsche's own website, go to shopping tools, and then select new and used inventory, and then you can search for new 911s nationwide. And they get a little cute here. They say that there's 25 plus available in the country, but I took some time and I kind of went through it and I stopped counting at over 220 units. So there's well over 220 new Porsche 911s for sale as of June 2025. So that's how you can identify how many 911s are for sale throughout the entire country. Just go to Porsche's own website. And the cheapest 911 that we have to work with here, it's going to be $137,005. It's a 2025 992.2 generation. Really boring spec, as you would expect, black on black, but it does have some decent wheels on it. Okay, so let's get started running the numbers. Regarding financing, I like to use calculator.net, and usually you can find an incentivized finance rate on the manufacturer's website, but with Porsche, don't expect any discounts on a new 911, and there's definitely not a advertised promotional finance rate for a new 911 or any of the Porsche sports cars. So instead, we have to find our own financing. I like to use penfed.org. Even though it's a credit union, you don't have to be military or anything to join. You just have to put $5 into a savings account. I'm not affiliated with these people, but they tend to have some of the lowest interest rates for new and used vehicles. And for 60 months, they're at 4.79%. So let's plop that in. Let's put no money down. Now, this is a pretty high MSRP vehicle. The most expensive car I ever purchased was the Lexus LC500 at around 100 Gs. Up until that level, you can get away with putting no money down, but PenFed on a vehicle of this MSRP, I'm not sure if you can get away with putting no money down. Regardless, let's just roll with that, and we're going to choose Pennsylvania as the example state with a sales tax of 6% and about $2,500 in title and other fees. You're looking at a finance payment of $2,773.46. And according to a Kelley Blue Book article, they recommend that the total monthly payment of a vehicle, including the insurance, the fuel, the maintenance, etc., should not exceed more than 10 to 20% of your net monthly take-home pay. So we can just use the Google AI to quickly find the average insurance cost of a new Porsche 911. They're saying that it's going to be about $1,500 to $3,000 per year. Let's just roll with the $3,000. So monthly insurance, about $250. And the average fuel cost for a new 911, the Google AI just spat out $3,600 to about $4,000 per year with 12,000 miles of annual driving and with the average fuel price of about $4 per gallon. Let's roll with the $3,600. A base Carrera does get somewhat decent fuel economy. Of course, it is still a sports car. People are going to be driving a bit harder. So even though they might not be putting 12,000 miles a year on a new 911. Some people might be living in California with a higher fuel cost. Some people are driving harder, getting less fuel economy than advertised. So let's just roll with $3,600, which will be about $300 per month. So insurance and fuel, that's $550 a month. So your total monthly finance cost, it's going to be $3,323.46. For this payment to be 20% of your net monthly income, you need to be bringing in at least $16,617 per month. And for this to be 10% of your world, you should be making $33,234 per month to comfortably afford a new base model Carrera in a rather boring spec, mind you, and with no discount. Some people in the Porsche forum, they were saying that up until 2020, you were able to negotiate maybe 6 to 8% off the MSRP on a more basic 911, but after 2020, that's been impossible. You gotta pay sticker for it. I mean, you could try and ask for like 5 G's off the MSRP, but honestly, if you walked into a dealership and you asked that question, they're just gonna laugh at you. And if you emailed the general manager directly before walking in, that's what I recommend, they're probably gonna just ignore you because it's not about the $5,000 off the MSRP. They just don't wanna deal with that discount energy. It doesn't matter if the dealership is one sale away from getting a substantial manufacturer bonus, they would rather self-sabotage and not give you the discount just so you can't win. I'm kidding, but I'm also not kidding because I've seen this happen multiple times in my life. This matrix will absolutely self-sabotage so you can't win. But another pragmatic reason as to why some of these Porsche dealerships don't want to entertain the discount people is because they're also trying to avoid that flipping energy as well. There have been stories about some Porsche dealerships who would actually give an allocation to a random buyer that would just walk into the dealership asking for a new Porsche GT3. A dealership would actually just give them the allocation to have them spec out the new car to their liking. And almost every time that the dealership would do that, the individual would go out and they would flip that GT3 for a profit. So when some of these Porsche dealerships tried to serve an enthusiast or serve someone who actually loved the GT3, wanted to experience the car, drive it, whatever, and would give them an allocation without having to go through all of the hoops, the person would take advantage of the situation almost every time and go out and flip the vehicle. And apparently that really hurts the dealership. Whenever the manufacturer finds out that a customer has flipped a desirable vehicle, like a GT3, apparently that dealership, it gets put on like a list and it's really bad for them and it kind of limits the amount of specialty vehicles that they have access to. So that has also caused a lot of these dealerships to be rather stingy when it comes to who they want to deal with. And when you come in asking for discounts, that's the type of individual they really don't want to serve. We just saw that you need to be making like over 33 G's just to afford this basic 911. Well, fortunately, it seems like the average income of a new Porsche 911 owner, it's about $500,000 or more. Actually, I've even heard that the average income of a new 911 buyer is about $1 million and up. So if they're making about $41,000 to $80,000 a month, I mean, that's the type of customer that these dealerships want to serve. But I digress. Let's actually move on to the leasing calculation. I do have a free leasing calculator linked in the description box below, but you can also find this calculator publicly. You can just do a quick Google search, look up leasing calculators, and you can find this one by AutoCompanion. This is not like proprietary special information. Anybody with Google can find this calc. And running numbers on that same $137,000 basic Carrera for 3 years, 7,500 miles per year, and once again with no money down, your payment, it's going to be about $2,313 per month, and that includes all of your taxes and fees. And according to this calculator, I'm not sure if this is completely accurate, but it's showing that the interest rate of the lease on this basic 911, it's about 8.88%. That is completely awful. And in this case, it makes no sense to lease the 911. In fact, the Porsche sports cars, they've never really been lease cars per se. It's definitely something that you either pay cash for or you either finance. But technically, if all you care about is the monthly payment, then sure, leasing is about $500 a month cheaper, but you're paying way more money in interest. You're not really building much equity, which that is one of the benefits of the 911. Even a basic Carrera does have pretty amazing resale value, and you're kind of just throwing that all away when you lease it at such a high interest rate. You're better off with the finance, but regardless, let's go through it. About $2,300 for the lease with the monthly fuel and the insurance. You're going to be at a total lease payment of $2,863.38 per month. That means at a bare minimum, you should be making $14,316 a month to afford a base Carrera lease. And to comfortably afford it, for it to be 10% of your net monthly income, you should be making $28,633.80 to comfortably lease a new base 911. If you wanted to, you can also kind of extend the finance of the 911 to 72 months. I don't really recommend it. I don't like that, but Your interest rate, according to PenFed, it's going to jump up a little bit to 5.09%, but your payment drops dramatically to $2,385, so almost the same as the lease payment. So yeah, I would still rather do the 72-month finance over the lease if the payment matters, but of course payment probably doesn't matter to the average 911 buyer who's making like over 40 grand per month, right? Either through some type of a high-level profession, like some type of petrol engineering, chemical engineering, some crazy surgeon, or really like a business owner, a successful one, right? Making that kind of money, they're not really going to be too concerned about a $500 swing on a monthly payment for this car. But regardless, you can also apply these finance figures to like a 2LZ Chevrolet Corvette Z06 as well if you wanted to, or even to a clean, certified pre-owned Porsche Cayman 718 GT4 as well. Those can also be had for around this price point, really clean with low miles, even certified pre-owned of course, if you want a more exciting Porsche, if you will. And you can also get the GT4 with the manual if you want. Anyway, these are your numbers. Comment below, let me know your thoughts. Thank you again for watching. Take care and goodbye.